Walk into any supermarket today and the milk aisle isn't just milk anymore. Whole, skim, lactose-free, soy, almond, oat, coconut, and that box of powder sitting quietly on the baking shelf, 8 different products, all called milk, and every single one of them has a wildly different amount of protein. Some of these are basically water with a splash of flavor. One of them is hiding an insane amount of both protein and calories in a small scoop. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how each of these 8 milks is actually made, and exactly how much protein you're getting from a 150 milliliters glass. Stick around till the end, because we're ranking all 8 from lowest protein to highest, and the results might surprise you. Whole milk is the baseline everyone compares everything else to. It starts as raw milk straight from a dairy cow, then goes through 2 main processes before it reaches your fridge: pasteurization and homogenization. Pasteurization is simple. The milk is heated to a specific temperature for a set time, just enough to kill off harmful bacteria without cooking the milk or wrecking its nutrients. Homogenization is what stops the cream from separating and floating to the top. Raw milk naturally wants to split into cream and thin milk, so it's forced at high pressure through tiny nozzles that break the fat globules into microscopic pieces, small enough to stay evenly suspended from the first pour to the last. Whole simply means the fat hasn't been removed. It sits at around 3.25% milk fat, which is why it tastes richer than the reduced fat versions. Now, the number you're actually here for: protein. Whole milk contains roughly 3.2 grams of protein per 100 milliliters. Scaled up to our 150 milliliter serving, that's about 4.8 grams of protein. That protein comes in 2 forms: casein, around 80% of it, and whey, the other 20%. Together they form a complete protein, containing all 9 essential amino acids your body can't produce on its own. Almond milk. Almond milk is made by soaking raw almonds in water, usually overnight, so they soften. That softened almond is then blended with fresh water until it turns into a cloudy, milky liquid, and finally strained through a fine cloth or filter to remove the solid almond pulp. What's left behind is thin, watery almond milk. That straining step is exactly why the protein number is so low. Almonds themselves actually have a decent amount of protein and fat, but most of it stays trapped in the solid pulp that gets filtered out and repurposed into almond flour. What makes it to your glass is mostly water with a light almond flavor. So how much protein are we talking about? Unsweetened almond milk 150 milliliter serving gives just 0.6 grams of protein, almost 8 times less than the same amount of whole milk. Most commercial almond milk is fortified afterward with added calcium and vitamins D and E, since almonds alone don't provide much of that once diluted this much. It's a genuinely great low-calorie option if you like the flavor. Just don't expect it to do any heavy lifting on protein. Skim milk. Back to dairy, because skim milk actually holds a surprising title we'll get to in a second. Skim milk starts as exactly the same raw milk as whole milk. The difference happens in a machine called a centrifugal separator, which spins the milk at extremely high speed. Because fat is lighter than the rest of the milk, that spinning force pushes the fat globules to the center, where they're skimmed off, hence the name. What's left is milk with virtually all the fat removed, typically under 0.5%. Because fat-soluble vitamins A and D travel through milk attached to that fat, removing the fat also removes most of those vitamins, which is why nearly all skim milk on shelves is fortified afterward to add them back in. Here's the twist: removing fat doesn't remove protein. In fact, skim milk edges out whole milk slightly. Scaled to 150 milliliters, that's about 5.1 grams of protein. That happens because protein and fat are independent of each other in milk. Skimming strips out fat calories while leaving the protein, and most of the calcium, completely untouched. That's also why skim milk has the best protein density of the dairy options. More protein for fewer calories. Soy milk. Soy milk has one of the oldest histories on this list, with roots in Chinese cuisine going back centuries, and it's also the closest any plant-based milk gets to matching dairy's protein content. The process starts with dried soybeans, soaked in water until soft, then ground with more water into a raw slurry. That slurry is boiled, a critical step, since it deactivates natural enzymes in raw soy that would otherwise make it taste beany and be harder to digest. After boiling, the mixture is filtered to separate the smooth milky liquid from the leftover pulp, called okara, which usually gets repurposed into other foods rather than thrown away. Unlike almonds, soybeans are naturally protein-dense to begin with, so a meaningful amount survives the dilution. Unsweetened soy milk contains about 4.5 grams of protein in our 150 milliliter serving. Just like dairy, soy protein is a complete protein, containing all 9 essential amino acids, genuinely rare for a plant source, and exactly why soy milk is usually the go-to recommendation for anyone going dairy-free who still wants a real protein contribution, not just flavor and creaminess. Powdered milk. This next one plays by different rules, so pay close attention. The numbers are about to look completely different. Powdered milk starts exactly like the milk in your fridge. Pasteurized cow's milk, whole or skimmed. From there, it's concentrated by evaporating off some of the water, then it goes through spray drying. The concentrated milk is sprayed as a fine mist into a chamber of hot air, and the remaining water flashes off almost instantly, leaving tiny dried milk particles that collect as powder. That's it. No other ingredients needed. It's the exact same milk, just with almost all the water pulled out, which is also why it can sit on a shelf for months without refrigeration. And removing that water is exactly why the next two numbers look so extreme. We're measuring powdered milk by weight instead of volume here, 150 grams of dry powder, not 150 milliliters of liquid, because that's genuinely a different kind of serving. In 150 grams full cream powdered milk, we get approximately 38 grams of protein. But here's the important catch, and it's a big one. Powdered milk is also extremely high in calories. Meaning our 150 gram serving comes in at roughly 750 calories. Compare that to a 150 milliliters glass of whole milk at around 95 calories, and you can see just how concentrated this product really is. Removing the water doesn't just concentrate the protein, it concentrates everything, fat and carbs included. One more important note, nobody actually eats 150 grams of dry milk powder at once. To make a drinkable 150 milliliters glass of reconstituted milk, you typically only use about 20 grams of powder mixed with water, which brings the real protein content of a reconstituted glass back down into the same range as regular liquid milk. The 150 gram figure is useful for comparing the raw ingredient itself, not for imagining you'd eat it straight like that. Coconut milk. Coconut milk actually splits into two very different products, and mixing them up is one of the most common nutrition mistakes people make. It starts with the white flesh of a mature coconut, grated and mixed with hot water, then squeezed and pressed through a cloth. The first, thickest press produces what's usually sold in cans for cooking, rich, high in fat, used in curries and desserts. Add more water and press again, and you get a thinner liquid, closer to what ends up in the refrigerated cartons sold next to almond and oat milk as a dairy-free drinking option. Those carton versions are usually diluted further and fortified with calcium and vitamins to act more like an actual drinking milk. We're focusing on that carton, drinking-style coconut milk here, since that's the one people actually pour into a glass or over cereal. The protein number is, frankly, close to nothing. Coconut milk beverage contains less than half a gram of protein per 100 milliliters. In our 150 milliliter serving, that's well under a gram, somewhere around 0.4 to 0.5 grams. Coconuts are a fruit, not a protein source, and that shows clearly here. If you love the tropical flavor, that's a perfectly good reason to drink it. Just don't expect it to meaningfully contribute to your protein intake for the day. Lactose-free milk. Lactose-free milk often gets mistaken for a plant-based alternative, but it isn't one at all. It's real dairy milk, just modified in one specific way. It starts as completely normal cow's milk. Manufacturers then add an enzyme called lactase directly into it. Lactose, the natural sugar in milk, is what people with lactose intolerance struggle to digest. Their bodies don't produce enough lactase on their own to break it down. So the lactase is added during processing instead, pre-breaking that lactose into two simpler sugars, glucose and galactose, which are easy for anyone to digest. That's also why lactose-free milk sometimes tastes a touch sweeter than regular milk. Glucose and galactose taste sweeter to us than lactose does. Since this process only touches the sugar, not the protein, lactose-free milk keeps essentially the same protein content as whichever milk it started from. If it's made from whole milk, you're looking at around 4.8 grams of protein per 150 milliliters, basically identical to regular whole milk. Worth a quick mention. Some brands take it a step further with a process called ultrafiltration, which actively concentrates the protein while filtering out extra sugar. Those specific high-protein, lactose-free products can carry noticeably more protein than standard milk, sometimes 50% more, but that's a specific product line, not a rule for lactose-free milk in general. Oat milk. Last on our list, and currently one of the most popular plant milks for coffee lovers. Oat milk. Oat milk is made by blending whole or rolled oats with water. Because raw oat starch doesn't naturally break down into a smooth, creamy liquid on its own, manufacturers add an enzyme, usually amylase, which breaks those starches into simpler sugars. That's what gives oat milk its naturally sweet taste and thick, foamable texture, even in unsweetened versions. After that enzyme treatment, the mixture is strained to remove the leftover fibrous oat solids, leaving the smooth liquid behind. Protein-wise, oats were never a protein-dense grain to begin with, and this process dilutes it further. Unsweetened oat milk typically contains roughly 1.5 grams of protein in our 150 milliliter serving. That puts it a step above almond and coconut milk, but still well behind soy and every dairy option on this list. One thing worth knowing, oat milk protein varies more by brand than almost anything else on this list. Some brands sit closer to 2 grams per 100 milliliters, while budget or homemade versions dip even lower. If protein matters to you and oat milk is your go-to, it's genuinely worth checking the label. Oat milk on the front of 2 different cartons can mean 2 very different numbers on the back. Okay, we've gone through all 8. Time for the moment you've been waiting for, lowest to highest, all in one place. The lowest protein milk on this list is coconut milk, at roughly 0.5 grams per 150 milliliters. Almond milk comes in just barely above it at 0.6 grams. These two are basically neck and neck at the bottom. The highest protein option, by an enormous margin, is powdered milk, at roughly 38 grams per 150 grams. Remember, that's measured completely differently, by weight instead of volume, so it's not really an apples-to-apples comparison with the rest of the list. If we rank the 7 drinkable liquid milks purely against each other, here's the full order, lowest protein to highest, all per 150 milliliters. The 3 plant milks that aren't soy, coconut, almond, and oat, sit way down at the bottom of the protein scale. They're delicious, lower calorie, and each bring their own benefits, but none are a meaningful protein source. Soy milk is the outlier among plant milks, landing right in dairy's range. And every dairy-based option, whole, skim, and lactose-free, clusters tightly together around 4.5 to 5.1 grams, because at the end of the day they're all fundamentally the same milk protein, just with the fat or lactose adjusted around it. Powdered milk sits in its own category entirely. Genuinely the most protein-dense milk product that exists, but paired with the most calories by far, so it's a serving-size ingredient, not something you drink a full glass of straight. So next time you're standing in that milk aisle, you'll actually know what you're looking at. If you're after low calories and don't care about protein, almond and coconut milk have you covered. And if you just need a shelf-stable protein and calorie bomb for baking or bulking, powdered milk is doing more work per gram than anything else on this list. Let me know in the comments which milk you actually drink day to day, and if this cleared up something you've been wondering about, hit that share button because it helps this video reach more people asking the same question. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.